Baalbek, if there was one example, one ancient site on Earth that is evidence of a lost, ancient, advanced civilization.
Baalbek, as we know from the archaeological evidence, must have existed during the Neolithic period, between 6,000 to 8,000 years or even 9,000 years BC.
Beneath the ancient megaliths of Baalbek sits a platform the Romans didn't construct, couldn't replicate, and never once mentioned in their records. Stones weighing 800 tons each, elevated 7 meters off the ground, fitted so precisely you still can't slide paper between the joints, 2,000 years later. When AI finally scanned beneath those megaliths, it exposed hidden construction layers that predate Rome by centuries, possibly millennia. And the builders left no name, no inscription, no explanation, only silence. The platform that shouldn't exist. 3 horizontal stone blocks form part of Baalbek's western temple wall. Each one stretches 19 meters long, stands 4.2 meters high, and measures 3.6 meters thick. Each one weighs approximately 800 tons. That is the combined weight of 2 fully loaded Boeing 747 aircraft, compressed into a single block of cut limestone. These are the stones the hook just told you about. They do not sit at ground level. They are elevated 7 meters above the earth, resting on supporting blocks that themselves weigh 350 tons each.
Baalbek has the largest stones that were ever quarried in human history, the largest stones that were lifted, stacked, and transported in human history, and the largest stone columns in all of classical history.
The joints between them, the ones the Romans never documented building, are so precise that after 2,000 years of earthquakes, invasions, and erosion, you still cannot slide a sheet of paper between them. Stand next to one of these blocks and the scale breaks something in your brain. Your hand against the stone covers less surface area than a postage stamp on a billboard. The block continues above you, beside you, and behind you in every direction. It does not feel like something humans made. It feels like something that was always there, like a cliff face or a canyon wall. Except every surface is flat, every edge is deliberate, and every joint is impossibly tight. Imagine lifting 2 commercial airplanes to the height of a 2-story building and positioning them to within a fraction of a millimeter. No electricity, no steel cables, no diesel engines, no computer-guided cranes. Now, do it 3 times in a row. That is the trilithon. And the trilithon is not even the largest stone at Baalbek, not even close. This site sits in Lebanon's Bekaa Valley, about 86 kilometers northeast of Beirut. Today, tourists arrive and photograph 6 towering Roman columns, the last survivors of what was once the largest temple of Jupiter in the entire Roman Empire. Those columns stand nearly 20 meters tall, with a pediment that once reached 44 meters above the temple floor. Visitors admire the architecture, take their photos, and leave. Most of them never realize what they were actually standing on, because long before Rome arrived, long before the Greeks renamed this place Heliopolis, the city of the sun, long before the Phoenicians consecrated this ground to the god Baal, someone constructed a platform on this hilltop so massive that no civilization since has matched it. When Mark Twain visited in 1867, he wrote that a race of gods or of giants must have inhabited this place. He said he had seen the hull of a steamboat smaller than one of those stones. All these great walls, he wrote, are as exact and shapely as the flimsy things we build of bricks in these days. He was looking at the foundation, just the foundation, built by people who left behind no records, no names, and no explanation. And what lay buried beneath it would turn out to be far more disturbing than what stood above. The buried giant no one expected. In the summer of 2014, a team from the German Archaeological Institute was excavating in the ancient quarry about 900 meters from the temple complex. They had been studying the famous Stone of the Pregnant Woman, a 1,000-ton monolith that has sat in that quarry for over 2,000 years, partially raised, smoothly carved, never delivered to its destination. A second monolith called the Stone of the South had been rediscovered nearby in the 1990s, weighing 1,242 tons. These were already the largest quarried objects known to archaeology. The team was documenting tool marks and quarrying techniques, standard field work designed to confirm what the textbooks already stated. But here's what no one expected. Buried directly beneath the Stone of the Pregnant Woman, concealed under meters of accumulated sediment, lay a third monolith, larger, much larger. It measured 19.6 meters long, 6 meters wide, and at least 5.5 meters thick. Its surfaces were not roughly hacked from bedrock. They were worked to smooth, flat plains with extraordinary consistency, finished to the same quality you would expect on the visible face of a completed temple wall. This was not a rough extraction. This was a finished engineering component, shaped to final specifications and ready for delivery to a destination it never reached.
These are clearly cut stones that were moved into place and moved 23 feet above the ground.
When they calculated its weight, the lead archaeologist immediately requested independent verification. She did not trust the number. The verification team ran it again. Same result. A third team confirmed, independently. The number came back identical every time, 1,650 tons, the largest precisely carved stone block ever discovered in human history. And get this, the quarry arrangement reveals something that connects directly to the silence mentioned in the hook. The positioning of the three monoliths, stacked and adjacent, shows a systematic mining operation of industrial scale. The builders had identified specific beds of high-quality limestone within the geological formation and were extracting from them in deliberate sequence, planning multiple simultaneous extractions of objects, each weighing over 1,000 tons. To reach the buried giant, they would first need to remove the 1,000-ton block sitting directly on top of it. They were quarrying on a scale that assumed the routine movement of objects heavier than anything human civilization would move again until the 20th century. This requires geological knowledge, identifying which limestone beds could yield monoliths of this size without fracturing. It requires structural engineering knowledge, removing a block this massive from bedrock without causing the surrounding stone to collapse, demands understanding of stress distribution and load transfer. And it requires project management on a scale that challenges modern industrial planning. Yet no record survives describing this operation. No civilization claims it. No text explains who organized it or how. The excavation had to be suspended because the trench became dangerously deep. They had not reached the bottom. To this day, no one knows the complete dimensions of this stone. There could be more beneath what has already been measured. If that discovery alone doesn't make you want to see what comes next, this story is about to get much stranger. Hit subscribe now, because the engineering math on these stones breaks every model we have, and the LiDAR data is about to expose what was really hiding beneath Baalbek. The math that doesn't work. Modern engineers have examined the logistics required to move these stones. The mathematics do not work with any known ancient technology. In 1977, French engineer Jean-Pierre Adam conducted the most rigorous study ever published on the trilithon transport problem. Using detailed mechanical calculations, he determined that 512 workers operating wooden rollers, capstans, and pulley blocks could potentially move a 557-ton block. That is roughly half the weight of a single trilithon stone. He could not solve the full 800-ton problem with available Roman technology. He acknowledged as much in his paper. Other researchers estimated 40,000 men working in flawless coordination to move just one stone. Standard Roman cranes of the period could lift approximately 60 tons. The architrave blocks of the Temple of Jupiter weigh up to 60 tons each, and raising them 19 meters into the air already required exceptional effort. But the platform stones, the ones the Romans never claimed to have built, are more than 13 times heavier than the heaviest blocks Roman cranes were designed to handle. Even combining multiple cranes, the coordination challenges of simultaneously lifting and maneuvering 800 tons of limestone are practically insurmountable without modern hydraulic systems. Here's the catch. The largest mobile crane operating today, the Liebherr LTM11200, has a maximum capacity of approximately 1,200 tons at extremely close range. That is 400 tons short of the Forgotten Stone. Specialized heavy lift companies like Mamaway can handle up to 2,000 tons using purpose-built gantry systems that take weeks to assemble, require kilometers of reinforced ground preparation, and cost millions of dollars to deploy. The Forgotten Stone at 1,650 tons falls within this extreme operational range. It could be moved today, but just barely, and only with the most advanced equipment on the planet. For historical comparison, the Russian Thunderstone, moved for Catherine the Great in 1768 to serve as the pedestal for the bronze horseman statue in St. Petersburg, weighed approximately 1,200 tons. Transporting it 6 kilometers overland through marshland and across the Neva River on a specially designed barge was celebrated as one of the greatest engineering achievements of the entire 18th century. Hundreds of workers labored for months. The project consumed extraordinary national resources, and that stone was not carved to precision. It was a rough boulder dragged across flat terrain. The trilithon stones are finished architectural components elevated to the height of a 2-story building and fitted with sub-millimeter accuracy.
This exceeds the known capabilities of what the Romans had, and it's worth mentioning that this site is some 2,400 miles from Rome.
The individual trilithon stones at Baalbek are 2/3 of the Thunderstone's weight, and the anonymous builders moved 3 of them, elevated them 7 meters, and positioned them with millimeter precision as a routine component of a much larger construction program, then vanished without a trace. Before NASA moved the Saturn V rocket to its launch pad in 1967 on a purpose-built crawler, no entity in modern history had ever transported anything approaching these masses over significant distance. The unnamed builders of Baalbek did it with rope, timber, and human coordination, on a scale we struggle to replicate today. What I exposed beneath the megaliths. This is the chapter the title promised you. This is what the I found. A UNESCO-funded project brought together a multidisciplinary team from Lebanon, Taiwan, and Belgium to conduct the first comprehensive 3-dimensional laser survey of the entire site. Using terrestrial LiDAR scanners, including the Leica scan station's P30, they captured millions of data points per second with sub-centimeter accuracy. Aerial photogrammetry captured panoramic imagery simultaneously. The combination produced what researchers called a digital twin of the ancient complex, a perfect 3-dimensional replica accurate to the millimeter. Then, the AI went to work. Processing algorithms tore through these massive data sets and flagged patterns that no human observer had detected through centuries of visual inspection. The scans exposed previously invisible construction phases buried inside the platform walls, distinct masonry styles layered on top of each other, each representing a different era, different techniques, different tools. The point cloud data stripped away centuries of weathering, lichen, and soil accumulation to lay bare the raw geometry of how these stones were actually cut and assembled. And here is exactly what the hook told you about. The AI flagged systematic differences in stone cutting angles between the lower and upper courses of the platform wall. The lower megaliths carry tool signatures unlike anything found in Roman stonework anywhere else in the empire. The cutting precision on those lower blocks, flat planes, hair-thin joints, tolerances measured in fractions of a millimeter across 800-ton surfaces, belongs to a construction tradition that has no name in our textbooks. The upper Roman editions, by contrast, show standard imperial-era chisel patterns well documented at sites across the Mediterranean. 2 completely different construction traditions, separated by centuries or possibly millennia, stacked directly on top of each other. The platform was not built in one campaign. It was built in stages by builders who did not even use the same tools. The scans also exposed an extensive network of vaulted passageways and chambers running underneath the visible temple complex. Most tourists never see these subterranean spaces. They are engineering marvels on their own. Vaulted ceilings supporting millions of tons of stone above, while creating usable interior spaces below that may have served as storage, processional corridors, or ritual chambers. The LiDAR mapped these underground passages in their entirety for the first time, tracing their precise relationship to the megalithic foundations above, and confirmed the network was integral to the original engineering design, not a later addition, not a Roman modification, part of the plan from the very beginning. The German Archaeological Institute combined the scan data with decades of excavation findings to produce Baalbek Reborn, a hyper-detailed digital reconstruction covering 38 individual locations within the temple complex. But here is the discovery that shattered the conventional timeline. Beneath the Roman Temple of Jupiter, beneath the massive platform everyone assumed was Roman engineering, the scans confirmed an earlier building phase. Architectural historian Daniel Lohmann documented what he called Podium 1, a pre-Roman foundation structure sitting 5 meters below the level of the later Roman Great Court. His conclusion was devastating. The Romans didn't design this platform, they found it. They found an existing megalithic foundation so impressive that they built their largest temple on top of it rather than starting from scratch. The early imperial Jupiter sanctuary, Lohmann wrote, shows both imperial design ambition and a construction approach that was clearly challenged by the already massive pre-Roman structure beneath it. The Romans were not building from nothing. They were building on top of something they could not explain and could not equal. And the masonry of this earlier platform showed specific, measurable technical parallels not to Roman methods, but to Herodian construction practices in ancient Judea. The stone cutting, joint fitting, and structural engineering matched techniques used at the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. These were not vague stylistic resemblances. These were precise technical correspondences identified through LiDAR analysis of joint geometry and tool marks.
Well, what was originally there before the Roman temple was this spaceport platform that was apparently used for extraterrestrials coming and going on planet Earth.
Now, here is the silence the hook warned you about. The Romans documented virtually every major construction project across their empire: roads, aqueducts, bridges, theaters, military, fortifications, meticulous records for everything. Yet for Baalbek, one of the most impressive complexes they ever possessed, there exists no Roman record describing the platform's construction, no architect named, no emperor credited, no engineering account explaining how 800-ton stones were quarried, transported, and elevated. The 6th century historian John Megaliths attributed the temple to Antoninus Pius, but graffiti on column drums proves the temple was largely complete by 60 AD, nearly 80 years before that emperor took power. The dating does not match. The records do not exist. The void in the historical records sits precisely where the most extraordinary documentation should be. Graham Hancock raised a point that has never been adequately answered. The fact that these gigantic finished blocks remain buried in the quarry and were never sliced into smaller blocks for building material strongly suggests the Romans did not even know they were there. They had been sealed under meters of sediment for thousands of years before Rome arrived. The Romans built on what they found, but what they found had already been ancient for longer than Rome itself would exist. And there is one final dimension. The Temple of Bacchus contains documented acoustic properties that alter how sound moves through its interior. Researchers testing ancient structures worldwide have found a startling pattern. Sacred sites from Ireland to Malta to Egypt all resonate near 110 Hz, a frequency that produces measurable shifts in prefrontal cortex activity, triggering altered consciousness and sensations of transcendence. If the builders understood, even through trial and error, that specific chamber dimensions and stone arrangements could produce these effects, then these temples were not just monuments. The stones were the hardware, the chamber geometry was the software, and the output was a controlled alteration of the human mind. The silence and what it means. Archaeological excavations beneath the Temple of Jupiter confirmed continuous human settlement at this exact spot, stretching back to at least 7000 BC. Whatever made this ground sacred existed long before any civilization whose name survives in our textbooks. The ancient Maronite patriarch of Lebanon recorded a tradition that the fortress of Baalbek was the most ancient building in the world. The archaeological record does not contradict him. The accumulated evidence demands uncomfortable questions. Moving a single 800-ton stone requires thousands of workers in perfect synchronization. 3 trilithon stones, dozens of 350-ton support blocks, 54 columns raised 19 meters into the air, architrave blocks, foundation layers. The entire complex contains millions of tons of precisely cut limestone. This represents decades or centuries of organized labor, directed by a centralized authority commanding massive populations. Someone designed this who understood astronomy, acoustics, geology, structural engineering, and logistics at a level we barely credit the ancient world with possessing. And someone commanded the labor of thousands of workers who quarried, carved, transported, and positioned stones they could not possibly have understood the full purpose of. and then they disappeared, leaving behind the silence that started this story. If the builders quarried monoliths exceeding 1,650 tons, objects that challenged the absolute frontier of modern capability, but abandoned them unfinished in the quarry, what stopped them? What catastrophe interrupted a construction project of that staggering ambition? War? Political collapse? Did an entire civilization vanish before completing its greatest work? And if the trilithon, with its 800-ton stones positioned 7 meters above the ground, was merely the foundation, just the platform, what was the completed structure supposed to look like? What was intended to stand on top of it? The Romans built one of their largest temples on this platform, 54 Corinthian columns, 44 meters to the pediment peak, and it was still dwarfed by its own foundation. The platform was overbuilt for Roman purposes. It was engineered to carry something far more massive than anything Rome ever placed there. Engineers build to specification. They do not waste the staggering effort required to move 800-ton stones unless the design demands it. What load was this foundation engineered to carry? We do not know. And that not knowing may be the most important thing Baalbek has to teach us. The original builders left no inscriptions, no dedication stones, no names. They left only the stones themselves, carved, shaped, fitted, and abandoned, waiting silently beneath the ancient megaliths for thousands of years in the Baalbek Valley through sun and rain and war and earthquake, holding their secrets in precise geometric silence until, I finally scanned beneath them and exposed what had been hidden all along. LiDAR has begun the translation, but I am certain we have only decoded the first sentence of a very long message carved in limestone and starlight, and frequencies below the threshold of human hearing. Some mysteries do not end with answers. They end with better questions. And the questions Baalbek raises about who we truly were, what ancient civilizations actually knew, and what knowledge humanity has lost and forgotten may be the most important questions archaeology has ever confronted. If you found this fascinating, hit subscribe for more stories like this. Technology is advancing every single day, and what it exposes beneath our ancient past is rewriting the timeline completely. The next discovery could be even bigger, and I want you here when it drops.